Thanks for joining us, Freddie. What do you make of what's going on? Can you give viewers an update of who's winning the presidential election?
I think, and I may be wrong because I think there are twists and turns to come, but I think Donald Trump is going to win this election. I think it looks as though he's so far ahead in Pennsylvania, Michigan, perhaps slightly less so, and in Wisconsin, that even if there is an enormous flood of late ballots for the Democrats, he will still get enough electoral college votes to win. However, I do think the Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail. They are going to keep it going through the courts as long as they can, and it may end up going to the Supreme Court. The Democrats have said all along that they will not accept defeat. Interestingly, while accusing Trump of not playing by the rules, I think they are not playing by the rules quite a lot too.
Obviously, President Trump has come out and said that he's won the election. He doesn't want any more voting. What do you make of that? I mean, it's a pretty incendiary comment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone expects Trump to do anything other than make incendiary comments, really. I think he may be right that he's won. Whether he's right about the claim that Democrats are trying to steal the election is another question. But I do think, he's perhaps right to be cross at the fact that Pennsylvania has allowed ballots to be counted so late. It could end up causing a significant delay to the election. And when it's something as important as America and who gets to run America, that has huge global consequences. And, markets are going to be paralyzed until they know what can happen. So the very fact that such a sort of shambolic outcome is possible is, I think, something to be angry about. But of course, he uses unpresidential language because that's who he is.
So I imagine a lot of Brits are waking up this morning wondering what's going on. And there's obviously, you've been talking about potential legal problems and this going to the Supreme Court. Can you just explain to people who just don't understand where we're at the moment, how that process works? What would be the legal challenges?
Well, so it will all be about whether ballots were signed on the day or were they actually too late. And so the Democrats, because they have a huge advantage in late ballots, the ballots that come in late, they will try and get as many of them passed, accepted as possible. And the Supreme Court said they could. If it becomes contested as it was in 2000, it'll be more bitterly and more broadly contested, I think. But the ultimate ruling will come down to, can the Democrats find, or the ultimate decision will come down to, can the Democrats find enough late ballots in their favor to swing Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, or two of the three? I suspect they can't. There's also Georgia is still in play, although I think that is looking a little bit like Trump's now.
If Donald Trump does go on to win the election, can you talk about some of the reasons behind that? I know that people are already talking about Black voters and Latino voters have increased according to exit polls for Donald Trump, although that data may not be accurate. We don't know yet. What are some of the factors behind his win if he does win?
Well, I think Donald Trump is creating a new multiracial Republican coalition. This supposedly racist president does seem to have the ability to appeal to Hispanic voters in large numbers. And it's because American voters are increasingly motivated by class. It's not necessarily about money, it's about class and status more than race. And for a lot of Trump voters, Hispanics and whites, voting for Trump is a sign of sort of working class solidarity against the establishment, against the elite. So I think he has actually, possibly by accident, perhaps because he's a political genius, he has managed to forge a coalition of a multiracial working class coalition that could mean the Republican Party can win in the future, when for a long time it was thought that eventually the Republican Party would just lose forever because they can't appeal to minorities.
And do you imagine that your next column, and a lot of British columnists are going to be making comparisons between Boris Johnson and Donald Trump's victories, where you've got a lot of working class voters coming out for the Conservative right-wing party?
Yes, well, that was interesting because a lot of British pundits were saying there's a similarity between Biden's campaign and Boris's, because the sort of message was, haven't you had enough of this madness? Let's get on with it and let's get back to normal. It seems that Americans didn't really respond to that message very well. So I think that America's not going to return back to normal anytime soon. However, Trump might become more of a unity president in his second term, because I think that was his plan in the last year, this year. But the pandemic has slightly offset that.
And what's going on with the polls, just to finish it off? Why are they seemingly so wrong?
The polls are rubbish. They are so bad. It's almost it's mind-boggling. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few pollsters in the last few weeks, and every time you talk to them, you think, God, they must know what they're talking about. They must be right. They do science, they do maths, they've got all these clever models and so on. But they do always sound like they have innate bias, deep innate pro-Democrat bias. And there is one pollster called the Trafalgar Group, which has a Republican bias. And they were much mocked and derided for constantly saying that they thought Trump was going to win. It looks at the moment like the Trafalgar Group are right, and all of the mainstream pollsters were wrong.